Connectional giving is really a lot of fun to talk about. It's so important to us as United Methodists because it's what really sets us apart from all other denominations. Connectional giving is simply sharing in ministry with one another, being in ministry together to the world. Hear that again. Sharing in ministry with one another, being in ministry together to the world. That's who United Methodists are. And so connectional giving is our mission shares. That's how we together bring our assets to do ministry together for the world. So if you think about it, in our last session we talked about the statistical reporting. It's on the expenditure section, Table 2, that we look at what a local church spends on itself. Not what it's spending in connectional ministries, not what it's doing for the pastor's pensions or health insurance, not the building notes, not benevolence that we're giving to other agencies. What we're spending inside the church on ourselves. And it's actually in lines 41 to 47 in that report. It's how much salaries are we paying to the pastor, to the employees of the church. What are we spending programmatically, and what are we spending operating-wise? How much are we spending on ourselves? And we take that, and we take 2 years of that and get an average. It's that average becomes the numerator, and the denominator are all the churches in the conference. And what percentage that turns out to be is what our share in connectional ministries, in connectional giving is. If we're 1% of that, then 1% of the ministry is our assigned part. And then we give into that so that then we have all the money that the annual conference said they wanted to spend in ministry. We have all that money pulled together. So you see, we're sharing in ministry. Annual conference has said, here's the ministry we're going to do. And we're going to be in ministry together, both being the hands and feet of Jesus and doing the work, and yet putting in what is our fair share, as we've said it in years gone by. We call it ministry, we call it mission shares. Whew! Had to think a minute there. We call it mission shares because it's our share of the mission and ministry we're doing. So if you think about it, that's what connectional giving is. That's what this connectional thing is. It's being in ministry together to the world so that we are known for the part we can do. Because we can do great big ministry with each of our little parts. And those big ministries are much larger than the individual parts that are separate. So where does that money go? Well, I'm glad you asked that because I always like to spend a little time sharing where these mission shares go, where these apportionments go. They're not a tax on high. They're not something that's assigned to us like a franchise fee because we're not selling hamburgers. Mission shares are when we put our money where our mouths are, when we support the mission and ministry we've collectively accepted at annual conference. You know, it's kind of like in Zimbabwe. If you're looking at your slides, you'll see a little fella sitting there eating lunch. Now, your church could not feed him lunch every day of the year when he's in school. But you can together because we all give our part and we're making a difference in that young man's life. Think about the hurricanes, Harvey, Irma, Katrina. Go all the way back to Camille. Together we raised money to help the people that were hurting. There's pressures, there's realities in our churches all around us. There just doesn't seem enough. But when we each give our little part, there's plenty. God never calls us to do any ministry that God hadn't first provided us the resources, both in people and in money, to get it done. The United Methodists gave over $100 million in the past couple of years for flood buckets, health kits, relief from tornadoes, hurricanes, straight line winds. The volunteers and mission teams have given thousands of hours to go out and help ease the suffering of those that were affected. We're a part of the Methodist Hospital in Memphis. We were one of the 3 founders of that hospital. And it bears our name because we want to commit to being the one that serves those that are sick, those that need help. The Methodist Hospital is one of our great stories that we need to tell. We need to tell the stories of how we help those that are in the midst of famine, in the midst of brutality of war, diseases, how they've ravaged the countries in which they live. And now we're all living into the COVID-19 and trying to figure out, how do we continue to move forward? We need to tell our story of how we're making a difference. How Africa University started out with visions of some people in Mississippi and other places that founded Africa University. And now they have graduated enough folks that they have returned to Africa University as the graduates to lead that university. We didn't fish for them. We taught them to fish so that they could continue to make a better place in their country, and we continue to help in the things that we're doing. We've got to tell our story of a United Methodist Church that believes there's no place on earth that's too far to go to bring the good news of love and grace in Jesus Christ. As you look at your slides, you'll see a picture of a church in Russia. That slide shows you that even the United Methodists are in Russia. Nowhere is too far for us to go. No place is too far for us to go to help with the hungry, with the sick, of those people that are in need, to tell the poor that we'll work side by side to help them in any way possible so that we can help raise them from poverty to prosperity. That's our job, to work together, to tell the story of courageous men and women that go into areas they're scared to go into, but they know with God and with the United Methodist Church, we're there to help and God's there to lead and protect them. We've got to tell the story about UMCOR and how they reached out and helped in all the different areas. And yet, right in our own backyard, we are able to be there because of the commitment of the United Methodists to live and give connectionally. We can't just give. We've got to live together connectionally and give together so that we can deliver the ministry. You know, John Wesley said, earn all you can, save all you can, and give all you can. Pretty connectional. That's called a connection. Earn all you can. Don't cheat people. Don't overcharge people. Don't be lazy. Earn all you legitimately can. Why? So that you can save all you can. Now, why do I want to save? It's because all these resources are God's resources, and I don't want to waste. I want to save for others to have what they need. And if I earn all I can, and if I save all I can, then I can give all I can. John Wesley said early in his ministry, he didn't want to die with any more than he needed to bury himself. Now, those that are estate planners probably don't like that statement, but it's really true in John Wesley's case. When John Wesley died, he had just enough money to bury himself, and then he had the funeral drapes taken and given to the poor to make clothes out of. So you see, even though John Wesley, like the rest of us, earned more and more year by year, he only lived on what he needed to live on. He saved all that he could save in those years and gave all that he could give, ending up giving even his funeral drapes to the poor that needed cloth to make clothing. You know, if you read the story of the manna in Exodus 16, now let me kind of tell you how it reads in the book of David. Now, your Bible doesn't have the book of David. Maybe that's the book according to David. These people woke up. They was out in the wilderness. They had been wandering around, and they woke up, and there was all this white stuff all over the ground. And they began to look around, and they were told, now, this is food. Get what you need. Don't get too much. Get what you need. Discern what the resources are around you. Figure out what you need to move on. And leave the rest, because it's going to spoil if you get too much and try to carry it to the next day. Just what you need, the quality. And then we can do mission work because we have lived into that work together. Corinthians 8 says it this way: I don't mean that there should be relief for others and burdens for you, but that as a matter of equality, your present abundance should supply their need, so that their abundance might later supply your need, that there might be equality. Folks, we're living in that day by day. A lot of churches can't pay all their mission shares, and it just breaks their hearts. I talk to them, and they say, we just can't pay it this year. And I tell them, that's fine. I said, your burden of today is going to be met because the people of the United Methodist Church are going to give at 100%. And one of these days, you'll be one of those 100% churches again, and there'll be other churches that you're resourcing. So I don't mean that there should be relief for others and burdens for you, but that as a matter of equality, your present abundance will supply the world's needs, so that later the abundance of others will supply your need, that there might be equality. Jesus said it pretty simply, in my opinion: to those of whom much is given, much will be required. As you begin to look, and as you think about this stewardship committee we talked about earlier today, that committee will help live into Jesus' admonition that to those whom much is given, much will be required, because we'll help them see the more you got, the more you need to give. That's what Jesus requires of us. You know, we're called to be a community of stewards. First, the steward of the gospel. We cannot let that gospel ever go away. Jesus' words, God's words to us, have got to be there, so that we know how to live as God's called us. We're stewards of creation. All this is only ours for as long as we have breath on this earth, and then it's left to somebody else. Don't use it up. Don't waste it. Don't squander it. Don't ruin it. Be stewards of God's creation. And if we're stewards of God's gospel and we're stewards of God's creation, then we become stewards of hope. And that's pretty simple. If you think about it, if we know a past with God, and if we trust the future is also God's, then we can live every day filled with the possibility of hope. Because if the past is God's and the future is God's, there's nothing in between but the hope in Jesus Christ. So as you think about this connectional giving, and what is this connectional thing, and as you hear that question inside your church quite often, just what do these mission shares do for us? What do we get out of them? It's not what we get out of them. It's how we live in being United Methodist. Because sharing in ministry with one another, being in ministry together, is that connectional thing that makes us different from all other denominations in the world. Yeah, when we get to heaven, we're going to all be one great big group. But on this side of heaven, we have our responsibility as United Methodists, and that's pooling assets, pooling our workforce, working together to make the world a better place, transform the world, and make disciples of Jesus Christ. That's the connectional thing, and I'm glad you're a part of it.